5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody back for another episode. What we're watching, episode 14. So we're getting deep in those double digits.
Ooh, it's getting nasty, Joey.
Things are
Getting
definitely
nasty.
picking up as we get to the end of season 4 of The Sopranos and into season 5. Um, Things are picking up. But I feel like in some ways they're kind of like flipping the script on us. They're like, you expect us to do all this, like we're gonna blow up New Jersey, and they're like, we're not really gonna blow up New Jersey. It's gonna be a quieter ending to the season, but still like very impactful.
Oh,
That's
extremely
what I
impactful.
was. That's what I was expecting. I'm like, they're gonna have to blow up New Jersey. How they gonna live in somewhere else? But they're like, no, we're not gonna blow up New Jersey. We're just gonna blow up the dynamics of everybody.
And that's exactly what they did. I mean, obviously, if you've seen the last 3 seasons, finales are usually very powerful. Somebody major in that season usually dies, be it Ralphie, be it Richie, but no majors except for what happened was major. I
Right.
mean, like, yeah, so definitely glad to get into it, bro. Glad to be back with you, man.
All right, let's get into it. We are at Eloise. It is the 51st episode and the 12th of the show's 4th season, written by Terrence Winter and directed by James Heyman, originally aired on December the 1st, 2002. As Junior let me start all over again. As Junior's trial concludes, Eugene and Dogsy intimidate a juror. Elsewhere, Little Carmine returns to New York to talk to Carmine and Johnny about reducing their demands on Tony in the dispute over the HUD scam. Johnny and Little Carmine confirm the plan, but when Carmine effuses praise on Tony, Little Carmine becomes jealous and disparages him. Johnny later meets with Tony and Silvio and offers a minor compromise. Tony, angry in part because Carmine will not deal with him face to face, rejects it and orders Little Paulie, who takes Petey and Alfie with him, to vandalize Carmine's new restaurant. And to me, it's like we're getting into like everybody's being petty,
Oh yeah.
but let's just do some major vandalism and cost each other a lot of money because we know we're being petty with each other.
I mean, look, if you listen to Tony, he had no choice. I'm just the appraiser. It's something that he said several times, 100% because Carmine wanted to put his influence on Tony and let Tony know he couldn't just do what he wanted to. It was only going to go downhill from there. And then for them to draw and I don't even know what our rating is, what I'm supposed to say, but I guess I'll use a term not too derogatory, to draw the schlong over the boat. That was just real low, bro.
So, in retaliation, Carmine uses his union influence to shut down work at the warehouse project. Tony decides to wait the dispute out, expecting the financial losses on both sides will quickly force Carmine into a compromise. So Tony realizes, look, we're both being petty. We have to do what we have to do, but this is going to end up costing us both money. And at the end of the day, it's all about money. They just want to
That's
make
it.
as much money as they can. Johnny meets with Tony and raises the possibility of killing Carmine, surprising him. Meanwhile, Carmela and AJ discuss a paper he's writing on Herman Melville's Billy Budd. Tony's callous behavior towards Carmela angers Furio, who has difficulty restraining himself when he calls his wife a moody bitch. Tony remains oblivious to the growing sexual tension between Carmela and Furio. Carmela later visits Furio's house to discuss decorating, but a possible escalation to sex is interrupted by one of her father's contractors. Tony, Furio, and other members of the crew visit an Indian casino in Connecticut. While most of the others carouse, Furio stands aloof. Later, as the drunken crew prepares to board the casino's helicopter for the flight home, Furio grabs Tony by the shirt front and appears barely able to restrain himself from shoving him into the spinning tail rotor. I know like there's no show without Tony, and I know he's there until the last episode. Again, we'll
Right.
get there when we get there. But I'm like, is it all gonna be a dream? Because he's gonna run him into that rotor. Is there gonna be like a clone Tony? Is this show gonna take a weird science fiction turn? Because I just knew that guy he was just gonna ram him into that rotor.
So close.
Furio tells the baffled Tony he was standing too close to the blades. The next day, Furio does not appear to pick up Tony when expected, and Carmela and Tony learn he has abruptly returned to Italy. When Rosalie suggests Tony might have taken action against Furio, Carmela becomes distraught and is later seen crying alone. Paulie's mother, Nucci, gets into a minor car crash with her friend Min. Later, Paulie has lunch with Nucci, Min, and Cookie, and overhears that Min keeps her life savings under her mattress at home. After a rough-edged conversation with Silvio about his loyalty to the family reveals Tony's unhappiness with his declined earnings, Paulie runs into Carmine and learns that Johnny never informed the New York boss of who he is or of his proposed shift in loyalties. All right, let's stop there because we talked about this a little last time because I thought we were getting into it then.
Right.
And we talked about it was very telling in that conversation between Paulie and Sylvia. He's like, I go back to Johnny, and he's talking about Johnny Boy Soprano, but you could also make the case he goes back to Johnny Sack, who's just been inflating him up. And then when they do that run in at the wedding? That he runs into him at, and quickly Paulie's like, this guy has no idea who I am.
Funny running into you here. I mean, he really has no idea who he is, and he's like, didn't Johnny, say something to you for me? He's like, Johnny, what? He's just completely oblivious to Paulie, and you have to. I don't know if I sympathize with Paulie a lot in the show because he's usually the butthole who causes a lot of the angst that comes his way. But in that particular moment, there's a sense of embarrassment there because I think you hitched your horse to a wagon that's got a busted wheel, bro. They don't know who you are.
I felt for Paulie here. And I remember when I was in college, I was living in the building that you were later running.
Mm-hmm.
So you know where I was.
Yeah.
And I had I wouldn't even say a crush, like a minor infatuation with the girl. We had hung out a couple of times and stuff, and I liked her. One day I went down the hallway to go to the bathroom or something, and she was hanging out in a guy's room down the hall. They were just hanging out. I don't know if they were trying to date, just hanging out, or what. And so I had gone. No, actually, I had gone to his room I didn't even know she was there for something else. And I'm like, hey, and we all start hanging out for a while. And they left, or they said something about going somewhere outside of the building. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. Let's go. I'm oblivious, right? And we go to leave and we go downstairs, we're going to the lobby and we're going outside and we're right in front of the building. And they're headed up towards the next building. And I'm like 3 seconds below and it hits me. And I'm like, they didn't want me to go. They didn't invite me to go. If they had wanted me to go, they would have asked me to go. And like in that moment, I felt what Paulie felt here. And I'm like, I didn't even have a good out. Like, I don't even think I said anything to them. And I don't even think they knew that I was starting to follow them. I'm like, and I just turned around and I just walked back inside. I think I went to the bathroom and threw water on my face and stuff like that. Because when you get that, that, I don't know, that just knowing, for lack of a better, the realization of like, ooh, this is not what I thought that it was. And to me, it's one of those, if that hole could open up right here, I'll gladly jump into it.
Right. Hole cannot swallow me fast enough, man.
Right. So I felt for Paulie here. So now Paulie realizes where his loyalties should lie. Shocked, Paulie decides to steal Min's cash and make up for his shortfall to Tony. The burglary goes awry when Min stumbles upon him in her bedroom, forcing him to suffocate her with a pillow. He
I
takes a
know
large
who.
he takes the large envelope of money to Tony. A family dinner to meet Meadows' new boyfriend, Finn DeTrolio, further dispirits Carmela. She argues with Meadow and her roommates about the homosexual themes in Billy Budd. Because Carmela's like, what are you talking about? I read that from... I was helping AJ.
See,
It's a simple story.
You cannot tell this woman that she is wrong. And if it's a book, what the author means whenever they write it, honestly, sometimes is up in the air because you can take from it what you want.
Right.
Not if you're talking to Carmela, you can't. You have to see it the way she does, or she is through with you, bro. Like, it's done. I'm not joining her movie club. I'm just putting that out there.
Or I'll join, but I got to go right after the movie's over. They're like, let's talk
No
about
problem.
the movie. Would you look at the time? I think I forgot to take the trash out.
I got a roast in the oven. I was trying to time it out just right.
Good movie this week, Carm. Where's my car? Where's my keys?
What my kids doing?
You're patting yourself down. I was thinking about another show that you and I also like because I actually watched that episode earlier today, King of the Hill.
Oh, yeah.
When Hank brings his guitar out to the alley and Bill tells him to play Puff the Magic Dragon, and he says, Bill, you know what that song's about? It's about a magic dragon. We're grown men.
Because they don't know. Because they're just looking at the surface. And I get it. That is a very pretty way to look at it, man. That song is about magic dragons. I mean, that's it. But come on. It's very telling to see that exchange with Carmela and Meadow because in this moment we're seeing Meadow showing her independence more. Carmela and Tony are being introduced to uh, the roommates, which is kind of funny. To when the male roommate is introduced and Tony's like, "You live here and you don't," talking about Finn, the boyfriend. And then when he thinks the entire time that male roommate is gay, and when he finds out that he's not, then he gets a little miffed. I mean, that whole scene was wild, but you got these parents praising Tony and Carmelo for the job that they did on Meadow. You know, so for that scene to start that way and then end so horribly when all Meadow is doing is showing the independence and intelligence that they've always wanted for her in the first place.
And it continues the next day at their mother-daughter birthday outing. That's where you get the title of the episode. They have their Eloise tea. Carmela complains to Tony while Meadow learns from AJ about her visits to Furio's home and her depression since he left. Again, AJ just totally oblivious. He just didn't want to go.
Nuh-uh. She just brought me along every time.
Tony later approaches Meadow and reveals that he and Carmela both had couples counseling, suggesting to Meadow that she treat her mother with more restraint. Meadow does not reveal anything about Furio. Later, when Tony asks his wife if seeing Meadow turned into a smart, beautiful, independent woman is not all she ever wanted, Carmela stares into a wall, seemingly deeply lost in thought, and then answers in a emotionless tone of yes. That's where the episode ends. Very heavy setting up for our season finale about where everybody is. About where everybody is.
It's it's wild because we see Tony have the conversation with Meadow on the stairs, and he's suggesting that it's menopause. And Meadow, having already gotten the lowdown from AJ about Furio, and now, I mean, like she's putting two and two together because Meadow's not stupid.
Right.
So it's building up a lot of tension within the family for the finale, which we're going to get into. Yeah.
Before we get into it, I mentioned it a little last time. This was the most difficult episode for many of the crew to shoot. And it came out, the article had been written before James Gandolfini died, but had not come out yet. And they added a postscript. If you want to read the whole thing for you and for everybody, you just Google the night that Tony Soprano disappeared. It's a GQ article. I'm going to read part of it. One cold winter's evening in January 2002, Tony Soprano went missing and a small portion of the universe ground to a halt. It was not completely out of the blue. Ever since The Sopranos had debuted in 1999, turning Tony, anxiety-prone dad, New Jersey mobster, suburban seeker of meaning, into a millennial pop culture icon, the character's frustration, volatility, and anger had often been indistinguishable from qualities of James Gandolfini, the actor who brought them to life. It was a punishing role, requiring not only vast amounts of nightly memorization and long days under hot lights, but also a daily descent into Tony's psyche. At the best of times, a worrisome place to dwell. At the worst, ugly, violent, and sociopathic. Some actors, notably Edie Falco, who played Tony's wife Carmela Soprano, are capable of plumbing such depths without getting in over their head. Blessed with a near photographic memory, Falco could show up for work, memorize her lines, play the most emotionally devastating of scenes, and then return happily to her trailer to join her regular companion, Marley, a gentle yellow lab mix. Not so Gandolfini, for whom playing Tony Soprano was always required to some extent being Tony Soprano. Crew members grew accustomed to hearing grunts and curses coming from his trailer as he worked up to the emotional pitch of a scene by, say, destroying a boombox radio. An intelligent and intuitive actor, Gandolfini understood this dynamic and used it to his advantage. The heavy bathrobe that becomes Tony's signature, transforming him into some kind of domestic bear, was murder under the lights in midsummer, but Gandolfini insisted on wearing it between takes. Other times, though, simulated misery becomes indistinguishable from the real thing on set and off. In papers related to a divorce filing at the end of 2002, Gandolfini's wife described increasingly serious issues with drugs and alcohol, as well as arguments during which the actor would repeatedly punch himself in the face out of frustration. To anybody who had witnessed the actor's self-directed rage as he struggled to remember his lines in front of the camera, he would berate himself in disgust, curse, smack the back of his own head. It was a plausible scenario. It did not help that the naturally shy Gandolfini was suddenly one of the most recognizable men in America, especially in New York and New Jersey, where the show filmed and where the sight of him walking down the street with, say, a cigar was guaranteed to seed confusion in those already inclined to shout the names of fictional characters at real human beings. Unlike Falco, who could slip off Carmela's French tip nails, throw on a baseball cap, and disappear into a crowd, Gandolfini, 6 feet tall, upwards of 250 pounds, had no place to hide, all of which had begun to take its toll. By the winter of 2002, Gandolfini's sudden refusals to work had become a semi-regular occurrence. His fits were passive-aggressive. He would claim to be sick, refuse to leave his Tribeca apartment, or simply not show up. The next day, inevitably, he would feel so wretched about his behavior and the massive logistic disruption it had caused, akin to turning an aircraft carrier on a dime, that he would treat cast and crew to extravagant gifts. All of a sudden, there'd be a sushi chef at lunch, one crew member remembered, or we'd all get massages. It had come to be understood by all involved as part of the price of doing business, the trade-off for getting the remarkably intense, fully inhabited Tony that Gandolfini offered. So when the actor failed to show up for a 6 p.m. call at Westchester County Airport to shoot the final appearance of the character Furio Giunta, a night shoot involving a helicopter, few panicked. Nobody was particularly sad to go home at 9:30 on a Friday night, says Terrence Winter, the writer-producer on set that evening. You know, it's just money. I mean, it was a ton of money. We shot down a fucking airport. Over the next 12 hours, it would become clear that this time was different. This time, Gandolfini was just gone. But back in those tense winter days of 2002, they go on to talk about David Chase and different things of his and how difficult it was to get the show even done. And this is towards the end. But back in those tense winter days of 2002, long before The Sopranos legacy was set in stone, Gandolfini's absence was becoming increasingly worrisome. The production team had already performed all the acrobatics it could, shooting those few scenes that could be done without its star. The whole operation had been nervously treading water for days. Many began to expect the worst, that the pressure, the substances, and the emotional turmoil had pushed Gandolfini over the edge. Terrence Winter, driving into work, heard a newscaster report. Sad news from Hollywood today, and his heart stopped. It was some drummer for a band, Winter said, but I thought, holy shit, he's dead. Sooner or later, the press, hungry for the Sopranos gossip at the best of times, would get hold of the story, and the upper echelon of producers at Silver Cup and at HBO began to prepare a damage control strategy. Then, on day 4, the main number in the show's production office rang. It was Gandolfini calling from a beauty salon in Brooklyn. To the surprise of the owner, the actor had wandered in off the street asking to use the phone. He called the only number he could remember, and he asked the production assistant who answered to put someone on who could send a car to take him home. They never knew where he was for 4 days. Could you imagine? Like, this is an expensive episode to shoot. They shut down an airport, and nobody knows where. Nobody knows where he is.
And obviously, this is one of those times where somebody's personal well-being is a lot more important than money. I mean, hell, if we're not talking about the performance of James Gandolfini in the first couple of seasons, him being absent wouldn't have even mattered because no one would have cared about the show. He did a phenomenal job to put that interest and that love and investment into it. So I mean, you have to feel for the guy, because we don't think about him watching. I know I'm guilty of it. And I've been in stuff before. Joey, I'm not familiar. I think you may have seen me, perform once or twice.
Yeah.
If it's a lighter stuff, it's usually easier to get your head wrapped around what you got to do. But the heavier the role, we just give these people praise for doing a phenomenal job, not taking into consideration what type of mental drain this could potentially be on that person. So for him to get lost for 4 days, considering the material that we've seen in this season, because ultimately I want to say that, along with his personal life, probably played a lot in what he's going on. They're talking about divorce in his personal life. And then he's having to film these heavy scenes, with his work wife, Carmela.
Right.
It's got to be a lot to play on him, man. So yeah, I can definitely feel for that guy. I mean, we talk about Heath Ledger because he's the poster boy for doing a job and having that role consume you. But I think this is just another example of it.
And there's 2 things that are telling to me, having gone through it and reading it, because I was just looking up info about, is this Furio's final episode? Does it come back and all that? Putting together the notes. That's how I came across this. There's a photo of, I'm thinking it must be the Emmys of The Sopranos winning, and David Chase and everybody's up there to accept it. And they're all crowded around the microphone. David Chase is up front holding the statue. James Gandolfini is in the very back. He's kind of turned inwards, and he's kind of looking towards that way, but kind of not. And he's just got the smallest of a smile on his face. Like, I know that this is all because of me, but I feel like I'm not really a part of it.
Very good.
because everybody else is packed in, and everybody is excited. They're happy. This show that they're all working on has just been won this award, and he's the first person I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, oh, he's all the way in the very back, almost like he's not a part of the scene. And then I was thinking, what was it? It was either a couple of episodes before this or the episode before this when they're doing the intervention. And Chris was saying, you're going to be fucking dead by the time you're 50. And I'm like, ooh.
Heavy material, bro. Heavy material.
And you find out that, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, as we get to, and this is real life stuff. This isn't theatrical stuff. I mean, this is real life stuff. At some point in time in a person's life, you start to think about your own mortality.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if, and I can't speak for James because I'm not James, but if at 49, 48, you know, at whatever age he was when they were filming this, if he's reached that point, which for some people, 49, 48 is around that time when you start to think about it, how do you separate that? You know, I mean, how do you, I mean, it's gotta weigh on you, man, because you know, Chris, James, James would know that Michael isn't saying this to James.
Right. It's
But it's still heavy words. And then obviously for us to see how it played out, it's tough.
absolutely. And I'm thinking, and we had made comments on it because it's at the forefront of many scenes and that many seasons, him in that bathrobe. And now I'm reading that he's wearing it between takes because to him, you have to become Tony. And I feel like at the end of the day, a lot of times it was probably hard for him to take Tony off. Because if you and I, all right, let's say we're back, we've been working there the whole time at the same place we worked together at. Let's say that we were both still there.
Okay.
You got about 1,000 students that we're working with. We talked about it before. We have people that know us, like, hey, Joey, or hey, TJ. I have no idea who that is. All right. Now you compound that out to you're walking down New York City, and all of a sudden that's Tony Soprano walking down the street. It's not James Gandolfini, who may have just been like, I was just going to get a sandwich. I can't throw on a baseball hat and disappear.
No, it's you talk about that fishbowl lifestyle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It is magnified a billion times over when you're talking about somebody as popular as, you know, James Gandolfini or Bryan Cranston, you know, playing Heisenberg, aka Walter White. You know, like these are roles that transcend just television. Khaleesi. I was trying to think of the actress's name, the young lady who plays Khaleesi in Game of Thrones with the white
Yeah.
hair and things like
Yep.
that. She, just like Edie, can take off that. You know, like if people are looking for Khaleesi to look like Khaleesi with the white hair down her back and that whole thing, Amelia Clark doesn't look like that. And that's her name, Amelia Clark, I remember. But you know, for the guys, you know, that they are usually as is. Like it's so much I didn't know that this even happened, and I'm looking at it just completely different, man. I mean, it's just the human element is more of a thing to me now. You know, that's why I'm glad we get to have these dialogues.
Now it's been almost 2 decades. Oh my goodness, I can't believe time has just flown by. I was driving to work. I was working in security then, and I would listen to Mike and Mike in the morning. And I think it was Greeny who said that, fame is tough. He says that, it's nice to be famous. If you want to go out and want to be able to get seats at a restaurant, he can usually do it. He says, but he was covering Michael Jordan when he was probably the most famous person in the world, and they couldn't go anywhere. His family like, we want to go out there. He's like, we can't. You will not be able to enjoy a meal at a restaurant unless they close the entire restaurant down. And then you're not going to be able to enjoy it because it's a bunch of waiters lined up just waiting on us. You know, you take a sip of drink. Can I freshen that up for you? You're not, either way, you're not going to be able to enjoy it.
I saw The Last Dance, not to take anything away from what we're talking about, but there was a scene where Michael Jordan is just sitting in his hotel room, playing on the piano, smoking a cigar, and walking around with a bat. And they're like, "Hey, Michael, it's your day off." And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, "So aren't you going to do anything?" He's like, "I can't." It's like it would take forever to get from place to place because people would swamp him. And I'm like, that 100% makes sense because what he was famous wise, that social media wasn't what it is now. You know, talking about Michael Jordan famous, that is a famous that I don't think anybody has been able to reach or ever will reach because of the way social media is now and how easily it is to get some type of fame and notoriety just based on a TikTok or a Twitter account or a YouTube account. We have so many more people famous nowadays. Back then, I don't think there'll ever be anyone to achieve Michael Jordan fame. But James Gandolfini was a part of the what we're going to call the renaissance of television. You look back in the day, you had Cheers, you had Night Court, you had all these shows that were great staples, Golden Girls, Good Times, Jefferson, all these shows, right? Now you're fast forwarding to the time where people are actually making serious plans to sit down and have watch parties for these
Right.
shows. James Gandolfini is the guy who started that more than any other show. The Sopranos was huge for getting people in to sitting down and doing that thing, man. I mean, like you said, people that you would never even imagine having the conversation talking about some, I wonder if Big Pussy is going to get whacked. I mean, that right there shows
Yeah.
the culture change.
And this same article, like I cut that part out because I'd have still been reading it if I didn't. It talks about because of this show in a couple of months, you're going to have the same type, same body type of person, the same person who is on the wrong side of the law, but this time he's a cop in
Shield?
The Shield. Yeah,
Yes.
would be premiering in just a few months from this episode. So, and it talks about then you go on to the different types of people from the Walter Whites to the oh shoot to the Shield to the over like the ladies man type of thing in Mad Men, um, and even the influence of the crew and the creators in the series in creating the series Damages comes from this time, for all that. So it's very interesting. So it sets up like I said, a very dynamic season 4 finale. That's different in many ways from the first 3 seasons. Whitecaps, the 52nd episode and the 13th and final episode of the show's 4th season, written by series creator, executive producer David Chase, and executive producers Robin Green and Mitchell Burgess. It was directed by longtime series director John Patterson and originally aired in the United States on December 8th, 2002. The episode attracted 12.5 million viewers and is regarded by multiple critics as one of the series' best. With the Esplanade project shut down, Johnny is worried about his lost revenue. Tony declines to move against Carmine, but when Johnny offers generous concessions, he agrees to go back. Chris has come back from rehab in very good shape. Tony asks him to contract the job out and make it look like an outside job. Chris delivers a prepayment of two heroin dealers, a prepayment to two heroin dealers, and delivers instructions for the hit. However, Carmine unexpectedly changes his mind and offers to renegotiate. At a sit down, he agrees to accept just 15% and praises little Carmine for smoothing things out. For Johnny, the hit is still on, but Tony finally decides not to go ahead and tells Chris to ensure the hired guns don't talk. Chris pays them, then Benny and Petey appear and kill them. When Johnny and Tony meet again, Johnny expresses his resentment against Carmine and his son and his anger at Tony for letting him down. They embrace and part, but eye each other warily as Johnny drives away. Thanks to juror intimidation, Junior is freed following a mistrial. Celebrating upon returning home, Bobby and Janice dance together, but Junior, distrusting Janice, finds a pretext to stop them. Tony takes Carmela on a surprise trip to Whitecaps, a house on the Jersey Shore he is thinking of buying if it is available. At first hesitant, Carmela is finally delighted. She and Tony walk hand in hand on the beach and kiss. Tony meets the house's owners, attorney Alan Sapensley, who lives next door and offers cash in the shortest possible time allowed by law. Sapensley calls the current buyer, who is having difficulty obtaining a home loan, and negotiates and threatens his way out of their contract. Irena drug dials Carmela and brags about Tony's relations with her and tells her he has also had sex with Svetlana. Oh, Irena. She just can't help herself, can she?
Oh, that was bad. That was bad. So bad.
This causes Carmela extreme distress, and when Tony returns home, she is hurling his possessions from an upstairs window. Tony must have been confused. He's like, everything was fine. We walked hand in hand on the beach. We kissed. I left. Everything was fine. She's throwing my stuff out. She tells Tony that he has embarrassed her for years with his infidelity and tells him to leave the house. Tony says, you stole from me. The cash hidden in the birdseed. He goes to Irena's home. Svetlana is there, and she explains that soon after Tony thrashed Zellman in front of Irena, humiliating him, their relationship ended. That's why I like Svetlana. She just cuts through all the crap and like, look, let me tell you.
You ruined
he's like,
he can no longer perform.
Yeah. And it reminded me, like, Tony's like, I want to see you again. She's like, it would never work. We had a good time. Move on with your life.
And Tony's sitting there upset. She's like, you'll be fine. You're tough boy. And then she goes back in the house.
Tony spends the night at Whitecaps. He explains to Sapensley that he no longer wishes to buy the house, but Sapensley declines to release him from his contract. That's a bad idea. Just let it go. Let it go.
Let man go.
Meadow argues with her mother about the separation, asking her how she could take shit from Tony for so many years. Tony returns home and becomes violent when Carmela tells him to leave. She threatens to call a lawyer and get a restraining order. AJ helps Tony clear the home theater so that he can stay there. Tony lies in the pool. Carmela complains to him about what he thinks is a trivial matter, and there is soon another argument. Finally, she says, for the last year, I have been in love with Furia. Tony, at first incredulous, again becomes violent. He charges at her, almost punches her, but stops himself and punches the wall beside her head, smashing it in. He tells her he looked for women with different qualities from her in his affairs. Now you're just trying to be mean. You're just trying to get something that will just stick.
They go for her.
Yeah. She reminds him that he hardly knew most of the women he slept with, the strippers and cocktail waitresses, and walks out, calling him a fucking hypocrite.
Which he is 100%, bro. We got to chop
100%. 100%.
Chop this because of this entire finale, from when she comes outside, he's in the pool, to when she calls him a hypocrite, to me is some of the best work those two have done together. Because it goes from the pool, scene change inside of the pool house, right? The conversation that they're having. He says, she doesn't look half bad, talking about Svetlana. She doesn't look half bad even with the one pin. But I can have conversation with her, something I can't have with you. She actually has stuff to talk about. That right there is a slap in the face of your spouse. But anytime Carmela has even made reference to having conversation with another man, Tony laughs at it. You know, whenever she talked about Father and Tantola staying at the house, she wasn't saying it to throw it. I mean, she was throwing it in his face at the time, but they didn't do anything.
Right.
So Tony kind of laughs it off. She says this, and she goes into detail talking about how excited she would get, and then how he would come downstairs, and then it's just like the yoke's put back on her neck. I just, man, that was some powerful writing, bro. Cause and she meant it. He is 100% a hypocrite because they talk about all the people that he slept with. She talks about one person that she had an infatuation with.
Right.
All the people he scored with, one infatuation, and he's punching walls. He's
Mm-hmm.
a hypocrite, bro. 100%.
Oh yeah, yeah. Tony calls Dr. Melfi but hangs up when she answers. She tries to call him back, but his number is blocked. He finally tells the family he's decided to move out completely. Both children go to him and he embraces them. Supinsley calls Tony to say he will release him from the sale, but will keep the $200,000 deposit. He offers to negotiate. Tony declines. Benny and little Polly take the speakers out of Tony's home theater, install them on Tony's boat, anchor it just offshore from the Supinsley house, and at lunchtime play a Dean Martin concert at high volume. The Supinslays close the patio doors and try to ignore it. At night, as they sit peacefully on the patio, the music starts again. Mrs. Supinsley caves in and finally tells her husband to just give Tony the money. So, like I said, a very low key ending, but you've got the main couple of the series splitting and Tony moving out.
That because that right there, that's the certainty of it all, right? Like we've always known that Carmela had Tony's back. So now
Right.
we're at the end of a season, and for all intents and purposes, Carmela's gone. Like she's out of it. We do not know what season 5 is going to bring us because again, there's not a lot of bloodshed in this one. There's not a lot of literal bloodshed,
Right.
but there is some emotional scarring going on in this episode because a lot of people have gotten their feelings hurt, and yeah, that's a way to end the season. But I'm just going to be honest about it.
You've got movement. Paulie has pulled back towards Tony after what happened with Carmine. You've got Johnny and little Carmine not getting along, and Johnny wanting Carmine taken out and upset when Tony doesn't follow through. And now you've got the personal stuff between Tony and Carmela and the kids and Junior having a mistrial. There's a lot of things going into season 5. And then something huge happens at the very beginning of season 5. So let's get into it. Two Tonys is the first episode of season 5, the 53rd overall episode of the series, written by Terrence Winter and David Chase, directed by Tim Van Patten. It originally aired on March the 7th, 2004. So over a year has passed. About almost a year and a half has taken place in between the two seasons. And you're almost up to it in real time. 1 year after his separation, Tony Soprano has moved into his mother's former home. As the family has dinner with the now married Janice and Bobby, they watch a news report about the parole of several local mobsters. Soprano capo regime, Michele Feach Lamana, Lupertazzi consigliere Angelo Gareppi, Lupertazzi capo Phil Leotardo, and Tony's cousin Tony B. Blundetta. Tony is excited about his cousin's release, planning a lavish welcome home party for him. During a meal at Uncle Junior's house, Feach voices interest in returning to work as a shy and sports bettor, which Tony and Junior agree to consider if Feach doesn't step on anyone's toes. And Feach is like, I'm just going to dance all around them. Not going to, no, you're going to have no problem from me. Makes such an impression, and he's in 2 episodes.
Right.
Such an impression. One evening, while AJ is in his parents' backyard, he discovers a large black bear. And I'm like, what the hell? And calls Carmela for help. Carmela drives off the bear and calls the authorities. Tony arrives home the next day and talks to Carmela, but it turns acrimonious when she criticized Tony for buying AJ too many gifts out of guilt over their separation. Tony reveals that he's been threatening Furia Yunta's life, mentioning that there are hitmen ready to kill him once he's found. After the bear's appearance at Carmela's becomes common knowledge to his mob associates, Tony tasks Benny, Fazio, and little Paulie Germani to guard his backyard. Carmela reluctantly supplies the mob soldiers with an AK-47. Shout out to Benny. If you know, long time TV watchers remember him from Doogie Howser. He was Doogie's best friend.
See what happens when you're not the young genius. You grow up to a life clown.
Meanwhile, Christopher Moltisanti and Paulie Galtieri spark a feud when their humorous retelling of the Pine Barrens story devolves into accusations between them and other gangsters. Later, Chris forces Paulie to pay for their dinner because Chris has been paying all this time. And they're like, that's just the way that it is.
He's done. He's done. Like, and to Chris's defense, he came back and said, "Let me get it." Paulie wasn't happy.
Nope. But the next day, he tells him how much he owes him.
Spinning wheels going less than 5 miles an hour, but somehow he's. I'm sitting there like, how is he making all this noise and he's going less than 5 miles an hour? What is this?
At Satriali's the following morning, Paulie demands that Chris repay him and threatens that points will be added on. Tony orders Chris to keep paying the tabs, explaining it is a mafia tradition of respect. In Atlantic City, Paulie orders his dining guests to order expensive meals to saddle Chris with an inflated bill. As they argue in the parking lot, a waiter confronts Chris about his tip. Now, this guy, I'm just done with him. You never confront somebody about it. Be mad. Go into the freezer, punch something, cry, be mad, whatever you do. You never confront the customer about their tip.
Did I do something wrong? Because you $16. Like, there's $1,200 there. Yeah, on an 1184 bill. That's $16. I feel for the guy because I know he had to be working for that 1184 tab that they created. But you're right. You don't approach somebody like that, and you see what happens. If you're squeamish, you might want to be prepared for this one because this is a tough scene.
Causing Chris to throw a brick at his head. The waiter collapses and goes into convulsions, causing a panicked Paulie to kill him with a gunshot. Again, Paulie, anytime something happens, he's quick to pull that gun.
The thing is, Chris hits him with the brick. He starts to have what we believe to be a seizure. Chris says, shouldn't these type of people have medicine for stuff like this? Bro, he wasn't just walking along the street and then just dropped into a seizure. You hit him with a brick. All right, so no pocket medicine was going to change the situation at all.
Look for his brick medication.
Right. Oh man.
Oh my goodness. Michelle Nichols died. Uhura from the original Star Trek.
Really?
Yeah. My sister just sent me the death notification.
It's a lot of people this summer, man. Prayers to the family, and just she did work. She did work. She was instrumental on the first Star Trek, bro. Instrumental.
Oh, yeah.
You know who Laura was.
So
Mary passed away a couple days ago as well. She was on a different world.
Yeah.
And Matrix,
And
she passed away.
and Paul Sorvino from Goodfellas and Bill Russell from the Celtics.
Bill Russell passed?
Yeah, today as we're recording this. He was 88.
I knew he was old. I just didn't know he was. Man, that's tough. I was just talking about that guy the other day.
Yeah.
Not
They
to him. About him. I'm not trying to make myself important.
you weren't like, show me all your rings.
Right. So let's put them in our. Let me hold them, put them all in my hand at one time. Nah,
I mean, he had them on all of his fingers, and
right. Man, that's tough.
so Paulie, we're getting back to the thing. Paulie grabs the money and speeds off with Chris. Next day, they agree to bury the hatchet and split the original tab. They don't bury the guy; they leave him to be found by somebody else. I wonder. I don't want to make light of anybody, even getting shot, even on a TV show. But I wonder what they thought when they found him. Did they shoot him and then hit him with the brick? What in the world happened here?
If some detective, and I imagine it's going to be a rookie detective that gets the case. The rookie detective is paired with an old vet who's just getting too old for this shit. So the rookie detective sees the gunshot and says, "All right, he was robbed. They shot him. That's it." The old guy's like, "Oh, I'm too old for this shit." Did they hit him with a brick? All right, clearly someone hit him with a brick. Now, did they hit him before or did they shoot him first? Rickie's like, "Oh, they shot him first." Then why would they hit him with the brick? Then somebody else off in the back. Well, somebody hit him with a brick and then they shot him. It's like, oh, okay. So it's just that's how I see it playing out, man. Because again, they didn't need to shoot him. They didn't need to shoot him. He's like, if somebody comes and get him, he's gonna tell them that we hit him with the brick. Paulie, pow.
Don't they have medication?
Do they have medication? Yes, they have that brick medication.
You think the young detective saying, did he take his brick medication? Check his pockets.
Check his pockets. Again, not making light of gunplay. It is a fictional show, folks. Please don't take this commentary too personal.
While Tony lunches at a golf course with Angelo, Johnny Sack, and Carmine, Carmine suffers a massive stroke and is rushed to the hospital. Johnny notifies his son, little Carmine, who hurriedly rushes to New York. At the hospital, Johnny reminds Tony that he has not forgot about him backing out of their deal to kill Carmine the previous year. If I'm Tony, I'm like, dude, give it time.
And it looks real interesting. Like there's no way that anybody could be fingered on this one, man. Now, what we didn't know is that the chef put just way too much dill in his egg salad on purpose. But still, I don't know. That was like one of the most awful scenes, man, because I'm not a real big egg salad guy, but it just looked disgusting, just sit in his mouth like that. He's like, does anybody else smell burnt hair?
Yeah,
like, no,
I was going to say he was smelling burnt hair. I'm like, I hope there's not burnt hair in that egg salad. Of course, if you hate egg salad, you're like, I knew it. I knew that there was always. Johnny believed that could have averted the current situation. If you'd just taken him out, then he wouldn't have had a stroke now, Tony. It's all your fault. Later, after watching The Prince of Tides with his mistress, Valentina, Tony wants to reunite with Dr. Jennifer Melfi. I saw a movie. I can be a better man. He sends flowers and a calling card to her office when he calls her up to set up a date. Of course she'll want it, ethics, methics.
ethics, not. And he did. Let's a lot of flowers, and to be clever, an extra large container, a Costco-sized container of Tide. We have to acknowledge the detergent because Tony Soprano is a clever guy.
I am your
Prince
of Tide.
I am Prince of Tide. But from all of that, I think the most telling thing was the sexy dream.
Oh yeah. So let's get into it. Melfi declines his invitation, feeling that it would be unprofessional of her to date a patient. And I agree with her. Everybody agrees with her. It's
She
just
knows too
that's the
much.
right thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just not right to begin with.
Yeah.
Later, Melfi has a sexual dream about Tony. Afterwards, Tony makes an appointment to confess his love to Melfi in person and begins making advances. Melfi again refuses, prompting him to leave. Later, in a therapy session with Melfi's own psychiatrist, she admits her initial attraction to Tony. Later, Tony makes a third attempt to court her by offering cruise tickets, but she declines once again and lists Tony's negative personality traits. Tony calls her a cunt and storms out. I love you. You're too negative, you cunt. See you next Tuesday.
Because that's how Tony is. And I'm sitting here, I'm watching it with a friend, and they're like, it just happened to be at the scene where Tony says, "You're turning me into a little bit of a stalker." And everyone that I'm watching the TV show with, because they kind of barged into the room where I was quietly watching it by myself, everyone starts laughing. And I was like, no, y'all don't understand. He low key is a stalker. Like, this man has watched her at her home. He's had someone to break into her car to fix it. You know what I mean? Like, she's had to change her life completely because of this man. He's had detectives tailing her. Yeah, stalker is a bit of a thing. But before I go any further, unless you tell me that this was a body double, Lorraine Bracco better be careful, boy. She better be careful, man. Because all I'm saying is, in my younger days, I would have had to release a couple knuckle children on that one, man. Because she was, she looked real good in that scene right there, my friend.
Well, I didn't want to go down this avenue, but here we are.
My apologies.
You were a much younger man when you originally saw this, because wasn't this about the time you started catching up?
Time facts. So I'm telling you again, big time facts. Much knuckle children for Lorraine Bracco, bro. She's sexy. All right.
You're not lying. She is a good looking woman.
Yeah.
But I find it funny. This is where the episode kind of ends. He storms out and then returns to his house to take up bear duty from Benny. But I get this. I've been in this situation before. I was separated from my first wife. We were living on two opposite sides of Fayetteville. And she called me one time because her neighbor, who was like, I think close to moving out, or maybe my ex was close to moving out, is very volatile. She's like, this woman has just gone crazy. She's in and out. She's screaming at other people. I'm concerned for my life. So I went over there for a while. Like, I look at it this way, regardless of what's going on between me and you, I don't want anything to happen to her. I'm still that way now. Like, we were married and all of that. So I get Tony's taking up and sending people over and watching after her for the because of the bear situation. So we then get into Rat Pack, the second episode of season 5, the 54th overall episode of the series, written by Matt Weiner and directed by Alan Taylor. It originally aired on March 14th, 2004. During a meeting in a diner, contractor Jack Mazzarone presents Tony with a painting of the Rat Pack and tries to get Tony to discuss his political connections. It is revealed that Mazzarone has become an FBI informant and is wearing a wire. Soprano Capo Ray Curto, another informant, visits FBI headquarters to help agents correct inaudible words from a transcribed meeting he recorded. As Tony, Bobby, and Junior reminisce, word comes from New York that Carmine has died. Junior is once again distraught over so many of his friends dying. During Carmine's funeral, conflict arises when little Carmine takes offense at Johnny and his friends cracking jokes at the wake, as well as the placement of an Opus Dei rosary beads in his father's coffin. This whole crew cannot have just a normal funeral. Something always going down. Always
100%.
going down.
Look, and you could tell little Carmine was upset. I think he was upset at the fact that when Johnny Sack came in, everybody kind of came in with Johnny Sack.
Right.
You know, nobody was really praising him or coming and paying respects to him. But I guess another 6 degrees of separation. Um, was it Sons of Anarchy? Clay Morrow. And then his wife in real life is actually playing Carmine, little Carmine's wife, in the show. That's cannot think of her name, but she actually is an actress. I don't know, she's an actress as well. She does a show on Hulu called Quick Draw, where she plays Honey Shaw. Just wanted to put that in there because you always do the little, the notes, man. You're always dropping stuff, and I know stuff too, Joey. I know stuff.
And oh man, the guy who's playing Jack, he has been on a ton
Yeah.
of stuff.
Yeah.
Later, Johnny expresses his astonishment that little Carmine is now contesting his position as the new Lupertazzi boss after having lived away from the family in Florida for years. Tony greets Tony B after he is released from prison. At his welcome home party at Vesuvio, Tony tells a large gathering how important his cousin was in his life growing up. Tony B is introduced to various family members, but is disappointed to learn his ex-wife and twin sons are not in attendance. At the Bada Bing, Tony acts awkwardly around his cousin and takes offense when he seemingly mocks his weight. Tony then notices Feach greeting Tony B with an envelope of cash and observes that he seems much closer to his fellow inmate than his own cousin. Over breakfast, Tony extends an offer to let Tony B join in a stolen airbag operation. However, Tony B is not eager to get back in the business and seeks to go legitimate by becoming a state licensed massage therapist. So Tony B gets out of prison. He's been there several years, been there decades, actually. He wants nothing to do. He wants to go legitimate. He had done some stuff in prison, really enjoyed it, and he wants to become a massage therapist. A disappointed Tony calls him useless in front of Silvio and Christopher and reprimands his cousin for making jokes about him and distracting mobsters with the demonstration of his massage skills. Tony later seems to soften his tone and reconcile with his cousin.
At 3 o'clock at night.
Right. Adriana watches Citizen Kane with Carmela, Janice, Rosalie April, Gabriella Dante, and Donna Parisi for one of their regular movie nights. Afterwards, the women discussion of the movie evolves into an analysis of their respective relationship. Later, Adriana meets with her FBI handler, Agent Sanseverino, who reassures her that she is with the good guys now. Sanseverino explains that she joined the FBI after her sister's criminal boyfriend inadvertently left her paraplegic. A shocked Adriana sheds a tear. This girl, Adriana, is just starting to fall apart, and it's just going to get worse.
So you talk about that scene when they were watching Citizen Kane, and I think you lay it down exactly like it happened. The one thing I want to make sure that I mention is her having that conversation with Rosalie. Adriana having this conversation saying Angie Bumpensero is not allowed to movie night because of what Big Pussy did, because they're still under the well, I mean, obviously he did. He turned state evidence. So she's now seeing, directly hearing from people how we treat people that snitch. She's already guilty of it at this point. She's talked, so she even gets to the point to where she's about to tell him. But she knows that she can. I mean, and she has the fall. I mean, that whole thing, that scene was very powerful for her. I don't know if this young actress got any hardware for her portrayal of Adriana, but in this last season, with regards to her being a state witness up until the point that we've watched her is some of the best acting that I've seen from her because I legitimately feel like she's falling apart right now.
Oh, yeah. Tony is informed by Patsy Parisi that his meeting with Mazzarone had been under FBI surveillance. Suspicious, Tony arranges a meeting and hugs Mazzarone to find the wire, not realizing it's in his baseball cap, which he said was part of his hair.
Like a Rogaine.
Yeah.
Start the
Gotta wait
Rogaine.
for it to work in. Yeah. Later, Tony tells his crew he couldn't tell that Mazzarone was an informant. Tony remarks about how Mazzarone had mentioned that Tony had lost weight, which the rest of the crew seemed skeptical about. During his council with his crew, Tony gets a call from Tony B's boss, who is considering firing him. Chris floats the idea of using Tony B to hit Mazzarone. Tony, frustrated, tells Chris that Tony B wants to go straight and therefore useless to him. Tony returns to his mother's house to ruminate about Mazzarone and deal with his anxiety problems. He calls Tony B in the early morning for a small talk and to complain about a separation. Later on, Tony drives to the Pulaski Skyway and tosses Mazzarone's painting in the Hassensack River, nearly 135 feet below. The next morning, Mazzarone is found dead in the trunk of his car. Meanwhile, Adriana is racked with guilt during another movie night at Carmela's, inflamed by Rosalie telling her how Big Pussy Bonpensero's widow Angie is not welcome in their group because of what they believe to be her husband's betrayal as an informant. A teary Adriana nearly admits to being an informant, just like you said, but instead flees and injures herself in Carmela's driveway. Adriana refuses the group's offer of first aid and speeds away in her car. The next morning, she tells San Severino that her friend is embezzling money from her boss at a furniture store. Got to give him something, right?
Nah, man. She had to get that girl up. She gave that girl up because she knew that if she did not, she was gonna mess with Christopher. She was 100% being petty in that moment right there, bro. Like, look, this girl is supposed to be your maid of honor, and she flirts with your man every chance she gets. Your truest friends are the ones that you're actually having this movie night with. They seem
Right.
to legitimately care about Abe. And it's just obviously Aid has this, 15,000-pound yoke around her neck because of the secrets that she's holding. But the other young lady with the fox, again, shouts out to her. Loved her in that Quentin Tarantino movie, but nah, man, she keeps drama around you because Joey. Let's not forget, she's the young lady who got was it Vito's brother head bashed in?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was the one that was associated with that one as well. It's just like it just seems like drama just follows her wherever she goes.
So we finished season 4. We're into season 5 now. What are your overall thoughts?
As far as acting is concerned, as I've given a couple nods during this segment, is like we've seen some really strong drama acting in these last couple of episodes. Because while there has not been a lot of action, there's still that suspense of saying, well, what's coming next? What's coming next? Because more than before, I'm actually looking forward to the interactions between Tony and Carmela. To
Right.
me, their past interactions, they're important to the storyline, but it's not a lot. It's a lot of Cold War stuff. Him making a smart remark, her making a smart remark, and then that being it. But they got to some meat of the way that they were feeling. They got to some real stuff. He almost told her about Valentina.
Right.
But obviously she's already upset about this one. I'm not gonna tell her that fingernail belongs to another one that I'm sleeping with. All the while she's only mad about Svetlana.
Right.
So that is there. We've got the Lamana landscaping versus Virgo. So Paulie's got a landscaper and Feach has got a landscaper. So that internal turmoil is going on because we haven't seen that play out yet with the episodes that
Right.
we watched. So there is a lot. We've got some rich characters, being introduced because because you've seen further. I'll tell anybody who has not watched the show and is watching it with us, pay attention to Phil Leotardo.
Oh, yes.
He ain't
Yes.
no joke. Pay attention to Phil Leotardo.
Absolutely. And I can't believe I forgot to mention it when we got to the start of season 5. No uh, Tony coming out and picking up the paper in his bathrobe. You see the paper, you see Meadow drive over it to pick AJ up. You see the leaves in the pool and all of that.
I don't think it was an accident that the first character we see in that Tony Soprano, in the role that Tony would have normally filled, the first person that we see is Meadow. I don't think that that's an accident. I mean, they always give us the little recap with the montage of showing how things have changed between
Right.
seasons. But then when the scene opens, it's with Tony picking up the newspaper. This time they
Right.
show us the newspaper because they know we're expecting it, and then boom, it's Meadow that we see. I don't think it's a coincidence. Meadow, of his children, is the most like him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we are going to leave it there for this time. Go ahead, TJ, plug away anything and everything you want to plug.
Well, I'll tell you, folks, thank y'all for continuing to watch. I hope that share this and tell your friends to like and subscribe. If you want to hear more from this guy, the most recent thing that I've done outside of working with Joey is work with Joey. The final episode of the Tokyo Smoke Show is recorded and has been placed. It's wherever you want to listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, Anchor. It's all there. But that was one of the mostest deep conversations that I've had with anybody over a pod. I'm grateful to have Joey do that with me, man. So, man, we got more stuff in the works. I hope that folks will, again, continue to be involved. If you got questions, hit us up in the comments, and then subscribe. We're trying to get those numbers up, man, and we're grateful for it. Cheese.
I would echo that sentiment. New episodes of the Joey Harris Show and the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show, wherever you get your podcasts, they're out there. Go look for them. As TJ said, don't forget to click subscribe, like us, comment, share everything that you want to do, that you can do to help us spread the word going forward. But TJ, thank you as always. Look forward to next time discussing some more season 5. We're getting into where things get deep, man. So I appreciate it, and thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.